So I wonder if we would turn to Kate's poem, Middleman. And Kate, do you have the text of it? Would you read it? And then I'm going to ask, and this is hard because folks haven't prepared, but I'm going to ask Kamara, Allie, and Amber Rose to make a comment on the poem. And I'm assuming that Kamara, Allie, and Amber Rose all have access to the text. Yeah? Okay, great. Kate, would you read the poem? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm excited about this.
Middleman. Only the body dies, but it takes the rest with it. Whether the rest is then dead or forever inaccessible is immaterial. Day breaks into nets, entangles air between birch and fence, the trellis and the rose. We meet in the middle with words to render myself unnecessary and invincible. But sights are trained and vines espaliade, splayed, still shivering in the web. I'm not immortal yet.
Gosh, I love that poem. So who wants to start? Allie, do you have a thought about this? First of all, middleman is a great, powerful, triple tending word.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just like still recovering. I think like what just moves me on like an immediate visceral kind of like very quick like reactive way is and I think this is like a very just a nugget of what is meant here by middleman, but the kind of caught in between relying on a certain immortality on your words to exist beyond you as the writer, as the person creating this, as we often say, this, right?
Yeah.
And just the inescapable fact that is also kind of a blessing in this moment of just like being in the world. And not being able to escape the rose and the fence and just all of the things that remind you that you're alive. So it's kind of what kind of strikes me is being in the act of writing a poem, being a middleman between your own like living existence and that thing which like the poem is on the page, it's not literally an organism, right? It's not alive. So kind of being the medium between like those two states.
That's great. And you've set us up for talking about this poem as a meta poem. Boy, oh boy, I think that's totally right. So Amber Rose Johnson, take it from there. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm super fascinated by this poem. I mean, thinking about the meta poetry, it's the moment where the text says, "With words to render myself unnecessary and invincible." I'm thinking about what words are able to do in that moment. So, I mean, the question of what happens after life, or just kind of recognizing the materiality and then the immateriality of sort of our essence and what it means to sort of be in a present moment, but that words are this way of capturing, maybe not capturing, but reflecting and bringing into some kind of material the essence that isn't able to stay, and that's what renders the person, the self, unnecessary, because once the words exist, they exist as something that's always intimately related and entangled with the person who put them forward, but then they also exist and do their own work as words are made kind of in relation to other words. So
wow. That was really fantastic. And I mean, I can't wait to turn to Kate at the end of this after we hear from Kamara. But what's so marvelous about this is that this week we have a lot of poems that are kind of very condensed. And with due respect to what Carolyn asked, actually kind of pointing toward the world. I mean, Niedecker is a very world conscious poet, even though she's a meta poet. These poems are really in contact with the world, with the social world and with the economic world and with the patriarchal world. And Kate Colby is one of my favorite poets who works in this mode, but who theorizes. This is a theoretically sophisticated poem. You know, it's about that thing we're talking about, how language is not transparent. There is the consciousness or the subject, and then there is the object, the thing in the world we want to render, but there is the wall or screen of language that keeps us from grasping fully and objectively what the world is. And that's the middleman. The middleman isn't the person, the subject, but the thing that separates us. The difference between body and spirit in the opening lines, the difference between the birch and the fence, the difference between the trellis, which is the superstructure, and the rose, which is the thing. You know, we're going to talk about that next week. And we meet in the middle with words. That's it. It's like a theory of language. This poem is a fucking theory of language. It's just, oh my God, I'm so excited about it. Kamara, any thoughts to add on this? Thank you in advance.
Wow. When you read it, I was just in the sound. So I think that maybe we can add in like a theory of like sound in here, specifically the S's. I was captivated by the S sound in here. The line, but sights are trained and vines is splayed, still shivering in the web. I'm not sure what that theory of sound with the S is yet, but I think there's something slithering in between in these lines and words that is sort of getting, sort of surrounding that middleman, something about this sound here. And then the last thing I want to say is that there's an interesting distinctions between what words do and what sights are doing, but the sights are trained, somehow taught, perhaps disciplined, and vines reaching somewhere, again, with the surrounding and restraining. Yeah, the really interesting dynamic between those words and what you can't actually name, and sights that may be more physical and tangible. Yeah.
Wow. I love you all. I get so excited when we have these conversations. I really do. Everybody said such great things. Kate, what do you have a thought about this poem of yours? It's a little old at this point, so you probably haven't thought about it in a while.
I mean, I don't have much to add. I guess one thing I'll add is that I feel as a writer, I've always felt the double bind of being obsessed with language and compelled to use it and describe what happens to me and what I see. But also being aware that I'm replacing my experience and my thoughts and the world to a degree with the language I apply to it. So I think that is some of the middleness here, this like entrapment between being scared of the power of language to replace experience and loving it and being compelled to use it.
Yeah. That's a general statement about your poetry, I think, or at least it was at the time of this particular book. Can everybody unmute and snap for Kate Colby, the poem and the poet? Yay.